I once tried to write multi-talented on my CV. My wife read it, looked at me and said, "You own 4 guitars you can't play, half a pottery wheel, and a gym membership you visit the way some people visit dentists." Then she crossed it out and wrote, "Enthusiastic." That's the polite word, isn't it? Enthusiastic? It's what people call you when jack of all trades would be rude and unemployed hobbyist would be accurate. Here's the phrase that's haunted every scattered person since the 17th century, jack of all trades, master of none. 4 words in, and already you can hear a hiring manager's chair creak backward. Except, and I only found this out at 48, which tells you something, the original line doesn't stop there. It ends, but oftentimes better than a master of one. Somebody, somewhere, quietly amputated the second half of that sentence and kept only the part that makes people apologize for their own personalities. Whoever did that, I have some questions, and also, frankly, I'd like my last 20 years back. I know a bit about this because I collect skills the way other men collect regret. I speak passable French, which I learned for a woman who is no longer in my life, but the French remains, sitting there uselessly, like a receipt for a gym membership. I can identify 11 types of cloud. I once ran a small business selling artisanal birdhouses for 4 months, which taught me everything about carpentry and nothing about birds, since it turns out birds do not care about dovetail joints. Meanwhile, my colleague Kowalski has done one thing superbly for 31 years. He is, without exaggeration, the single greatest living expert in industrial adhesive compliance. Kowalski does not own a pottery wheel. Kowalski has never once said, "I've always wanted to try beekeeping." Kowalski is, in the specific and narrow sense, magnificent, and I used to think that made me the lesser man. Then I spent 26 years in the army, and the army, which does not have time for your feelings, but occasionally has better ideas than your feelings do, taught me something Kowalski's adhesive compliance never will. Nobody wins a war with one specialist standing alone in a field, doing his one beautiful thing. Infantry alone gets outflanked. Artillery alone can't hold a hill. You need people who know a little about several things so that when the plan collapses, and the plan always collapses, somebody in the unit has, quite by accident, read the right book. I've watched the same principle limp through every hiring room I've sat in for the last 12 years. The specialist solves today's problem beautifully, on schedule, and then goes home. The generalist is the one who says, "This looks exactly like a problem I had at a completely different job, doing something completely unrelated," and is usually right, and is usually a little insufferable about it. There is, of course, a catch, because there's always a catch. And the catch is this: nobody built you a shelf to put any of this on. Try learning a skill from the internet and you'll notice something strange. There are 10,000 tutorials for absolute beginners, and almost none for the stage after that. The deeply unglamorous middle where you're no longer bad but nowhere near good. That stage doesn't get filmed because nobody wants to watch competent, so people quietly assume competent is the ceiling, hang up their birdhouse tools, and go back to being enthusiastic about something else entirely. So here is the only useful thing I've built out of 40 years of not finishing things. Stop trying to be eye-shaped, one deep, narrow hole, drilled straight down, impressive and lonely. Be M-shaped, 2 or 3 real peaks, connected by a wide, slightly ridiculous base of everything else you picked up along the way. 3 moves, and I'll give you the names I actually use because they make me feel less like a man who quit the birdhouse business and more like a man executing a strategy. 1. Reconnaissance. You are allowed to scout 10 interests for a season each before committing to anything. Nobody blames the scout for not settling down. The scout's entire job is to leave. 2. Serial mastery, not simultaneous mastery. You don't chase all your peaks at once. That's just a man in a garage with 4 guitars and no calluses. You go deep on one for a real stretch, take what it gives you, and rotate. The birdhouses taught me tolerances. The French, oddly, taught me patience. Neither one alone was worth much. Together, apparently, they're worth this video. 3. Tactical disengagement, which is a very serious military term for "I am allowed to quit the pottery wheel." Quitting after you've extracted what a thing had to teach you isn't failure. It's redeployment. It only becomes failure if you quit out of frustration halfway up, which, yes, I have also done, twice, on the same pottery wheel. So, here's my confession, and I mean it as one. I am not a master of anything. I am a moderately competent generalist with a strange assortment of tools, some French I can't use, and a wife who edits my CV. And somewhere along the way, I stopped apologizing for that because it turns out the wide, ridiculous base is exactly the thing that lets you see over the fence when the specialist next to you is still admiring his one perfect hole in the ground. Kowalski, if you're watching, the adhesive compliance thing really is impressive. I mean that. I still can't play the guitar. Not a master of one, not really a jack of anything either. Somewhere in between is exactly where the useful people live.